Om Shri Sai Ram. So, welcome to yet another session of the uh, Gita Vahini. Uh, Happy Ganesh Chaturthi to all of you, and with loving pranams at Bhagwan's lotus feet. Uh, I just want to summarize some of what we discussed in the last class. So, in the last session that we had, we started the first part of the third section of the Gita. So, if you remember, the the Gita has 18 chapters, and the first 6 chapters are all about analyzing the problem of our existence and our misidentification with the body and the world. And then that concludes with learning how to perform action with renunciation. The second section of the Gita is all about bhakti. In various forms, Sri Krishna introduces to Arjuna uh, different aspects, different levels of devotion. And it culminates, that section of the Gita culminates with chapter 12, which is Bhakti Yoga. And then the third section of the Gita is said to be all about Jnana Yoga. And, it is the most challenging part of the Gita. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But in that section, we started with talking about Kshetra Yoga. And even the word Kshetrajna seems to be very difficult to digest, very difficult to, to cope with, to understand. But all of you stayed with me through the last session, and we discussed what is the meaning of Kshetra and Kshetrajna. So by Kshetra, which literally means field, Sri Krishna is explaining to Arjuna that this field in which we operate, the world, we also includes our bodies, But there is an entity which is separate from the world and our bodies, and that is the soul. Sorry. And not only that, there is a very beautiful interpretation here which says that it is not merely the body and the world which is the field, but it is also the body and the mind. So we live in essentially three realities. The first is the material existence, which Swami calls materialization. We live in a factual world with which we can deal, with which we can touch, which we can feel. And then there is a mental world, which is very private to us. In our mental world, we take in perceptions and we store them in a way that nobody else is privy to those perceptions, those understandings, those feelings. And so, to some extent, we live in that private world of the mental aspect of our existence, which all of you know Swami calls vibration. So, there is materialization, which is physical, tangible. It has color, it has shape. We can generally name it. And then there is a more nebulous world, which is very private, very subjective to your own sense of being, which is the mental world. So there is physical, mental. And then finally, there is the reason why we are all here today, the spiritual aspect. So Sri Krishna describes it as Adi Bhautik, that is physical, Adi Daivik, which is all at the level of vibration, which is the mental world. And then finally, Adhyatmik, which is the spiritual world. And Sri Krishna beautifully explains that Kshetra constitutes the external world, Prakriti and Maya, and our bodies and minds. And that Purusha, who is the unmanifest God, Swami, Sri Krishna, is really in the spiritual realm. So as we move on from Kshetrajna Yoga, and thank you for staying with me through that, let me now take you to The next, and then we also touched briefly upon the next yoga or the chapter which is called Gunatraya Vibhag Yoga, which I'm just going to tell you one little verse from it. We spoke about it. We spoke about the Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, and then Swami has described this very beautifully as a jyoti or a light or a lamp which is covered with, Swami calls it a chimney. We generally term it as a shade or a covering for the light. Swami describes it in the Gita Vahini as a chimney. And in that chimney, Swami says, let me just try to see where I have that saved. Okay, it's not in this document. So Swami says that in the three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas, are like having, sattva is like having a clean, colorless glass around the jyoti. That jyoti is the Atma. So if you relate Kshetra Kshetrajna Yoga, which is about the soul, which is the knower of the field, and the field, which is everything that you see, all are what is called objective knowledge, which you perceive through the medium of your senses and the mind. So Swami has said in the Gita Vahini very beautifully, and this has stayed with me, that when you have this light flame, which is internal to us, which is our Atma, which is compared to a jyoti or a light flame, when you have sattva around it, sattva guna, then it is like a clear, colorless chimney, Swami calls it, or a shade. When you have rajas, you have stained glass. When you go to the churches, you can see blue, green, red glass with images. And it's such a beautiful analogy because in that stained glass are the colors of passion, of involvement, of the rajasic nature. And finally, Swami says, if around that flame, you encase that flame in a mud pot, then the flame is not at all visible outside. And that is the tamasic nature, or the ignorant and dark aspect of our personalities, which is dull, which are dull, the nature of dullness. And then Swami ends that explanation or exposition about the Gunatraya Vibhag Yoga. So Gunatraya, Guna, there are three gunas, Traya means three, Vibhag, how these three are separated. They are typically compartmentalizing our life. Though our personalities often express one or the other, but we have to learn how to see these three as manifesting through us. And this is the verse in which Sri Krishna says that sorry. Just once. Yeah, sorry, I had the wrong document open. So that Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga is the place where Sri Krishna describes how to divide up these three uh, aspects of our personality. And when we realize that our personality is nothing but a combination of these three gunas that play out through us, then that is when we are ready to move on to the next stage. And what is that next stage? That is the chapter which is called Purushottam Yoga. So in the Purushottam Yoga, and in this is chapter 15, and in the chapter 15, when I was a Balvika student, Swami had sent word from Puttaparthi. I was in Mumbai at that time. Swami had said that I want the Balvika students to learn chapter 15 and 16, and they should be able to chant it. So I remember this is the first verse of that chapter. It's a very interesting allegory that Sri Krishna is giving. And it says, Urdhva Moolam Adhash Shakham Ashwatam Prahuravyayam Chandamsi Yasya Paranani Yastam Vedasa Vedavita. So it's a very fantastic Sanskrit verse in which Sri Krishna explains that the world is compared to an eternal Ashwatha tree. How funny that the Lord has to give the example of the Ashwatha tree. And I will take you to uh, see. Let's take a look at this Ashwatha tree. What is it? Before we talk more about it, let me take you to this Ashwatha tree and see how it actually exists today. There are very few of these Ashwatha trees. I don't know whether some of you are familiar with it, but let me just show you what really is the Ashwatha tree. Can you see my screen? Can somebody respond if you can see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So take a look at this. And this is beautiful because this is how Sri Krishna and Swami taught. So this is actually a great banyan tree. There are very few of these trees left. And it has the Guinness Book of World Record. It spreads, a single tree spreads over an area of 1.6 hectares. And it has 3,618 prop roots. And this is what we should be explaining to our children also, because when we teach by these examples, it will be fascinating. So let me show you what that tree looks like. So that is just I just wanted to give you a glimpse of an actual example that Sri Krishna has given about what is this Ashwatha tree. Now let's delve a little bit into that and try to understand why Sri Krishna gave that example. So if you can, some of you can take to your chat windows and tell me, what is it that you observed in that Ashwatha tree, that YouTube video that I just showed you about that tree in the city of Calcutta in East India. So some of you may be familiar with it already. It's a very big tourist site. But let me see relationships. Okay, Gautamji, thank you. What else? What did you actually see in the tree itself in that video? What appeared to you as 1.6 hectares is a vast area. It's probably the size of HSNC, the temple where we used to meet. Vast spread it has. Any other people want to take a stab? What did it remind you of? Okay, so the way that tree has existed, right? When you look at the explanation Sri Krishna gives for it, Urdhva Moolam Adhash Shakham Ashwatam Prahuravyayam. So this Ashwatha tree has been actually described 5,000 years, 3,000 years ago by Sri Krishna. And what is the beauty of it is that it has its roots above and it has the branches below. So the roots of the tree, they hang downwards. And Sri Krishna explains it to the flow of karma in the human form. But the way Swami has described it is fascinating. I'll take you to Swami's explanation on that, And Swami says, consider the world to be a tree that has its roots in God or Brahman. That is, the roots are above. And you're able to see my screen, right? This Word document that I'm sharing.
Yes, yes.
So Swami, these are Swami's words. The roots are above and the branches are below. The objective world can be truly understood by two types of examination, Swami says. There is an examination or a reasoning that binds and a reasoning that liberates. And when you look at that tree, it's so odd because how can it have its roots above and the branches below? And the other thing that the Gita explains, Sri Krishna explains, is that its leaves are the Vedic hymns. What a fascinating thing, what a fascinating analogy, which really has to make us go within to analyze what is it that Sri Krishna is trying to communicate to us. And then in the next verse, he says, so you, by studying those leaves, the leaves are the expression of that tree which has its roots above, branches grow below, and spreads in a vast area. But the saving grace, the release, the secret of that tree, how do you know the secret of that tree? It is the Vedic hymns, which are the leaves of the tree. This is exactly what Sri Krishna said about that tree, that the leaves of that very unique, different tree, which is equated to our samsara, those leaves are the Vedic hymns. And the one who knows the secret of those trees, of that tree, actually becomes learned only by knowing the Vedic hymns. Fantastic. I mean, there's nothing equal to this that I have read in terms of an analogy, which is, taking us in the direction of understanding ourselves. It's not a concept about something else. And then Sri Krishna says the branches of the tree extend upward and downward, nourished by the three gunas. So you can see the previous chapter was about Gunatraya Vibhag Yoga. And the chapter before that was Bhakti Yoga. So now Sri Krishna is bringing it all together and saying that its roots branch out, causing karmic actions in the world of humans. Now let us see what else Swami has said about this. Swami says the basis of this tree is really the subtle Atma. It is everywhere but nowhere visible, the banyan tree. So what happens is when the roots are down, as you walk, you notice the roots. But when the roots are above, you mistake the roots to be the branches. And just pause and think about this. When Swami used to materialize an object for us in the interview room, sometimes he created a watch, sometimes he created a ring. And I'll just show you, just to make it a little bit interesting for you. In one interview, when in 1991, when I had an opportunity to, Swami called me in the morning, and he created, this is a very beautiful, priceless gem that Swami created for me. I'll just stop sharing and show it to you, just to give you a little bit of diversion. So this is the ring that Bhagwan created for me, and you can see how beautifully in gold there is a filigree on the side, and you can see Swami's own image from the shoulder up is embossed on that ring. It's a fascinating ring, and it's so beautiful, right? You can see this filigree on the side, and so you must all be appreciating it. And it is Bhagwan's grace that for me this is a still remained with me as a memento, as a reminder of Bhagwan's grace. But I want to draw your attention to something that just happened. Now when I showed you the ring, what happened to you? Your attention went entirely on the ring. Even though you were seeing Swami's carved out form on the ring, but you were noticing the gold, the shape of the ring, the filigree, and for a second, we may have forgotten Swami himself. And this was what Swami used to do very often to us. He would materialize a watch. Sometimes he materialized a laddu, and he would powder it and give it to all of us. And then he would sit back in his chair, wipe his hands, and said, but all of you are only interested in the creation. None of you are interested in the creator. Because, as young boys, by then we would be hungry. We would be partaking of those laddu pieces and savoring it, right? We might have for a second, even though we were in the cherished divine interview room, millions of people have hoped and prayed to be in that interview room, and we were there so easily, but our attention may have gone more on the watch or the vibhuti that Swami had created, or the ring, or the laddu, and we may be busy eating that. And Swami would take a sigh and say, all of you are not interested in the creator, you are only interested in the creation. And that is exactly what is happening to us in this verse, what Sri Krishna has described, that when you see this tree of creation, this samsara, you're so enamored by the way the uh, spread of the tree is. And what is the other meaning of this spread? As you saw in that video, that YouTube video, it looked like a web. It looked like a web of twigs and branches. And that is the entanglement that you and I face. And what is the main, if you summarize the Gita in one word, it is tagi, which means tyag, or the ability to give up. And so what has happened is that we are entangled, and we have got ourselves deeper and deeper in this entanglement. By doing a college course, we got entangled with a particular subject area. If you did your medicine, you could not be an engineer or a carpenter or a farmer, right? You had to become a doctor. So there is a binding there. If I did my engineering and I wanted to become a computer science, I cannot then become a doctor or an automobile engineer. I got entangled. Then I settled down with a family. I had children. So there is that tree that you saw there, that Ashwatha tree. We forget, because the roots are on top. We forget to look at the roots. And where are we rooted? What is our root? That is the whole purpose of this chapter. Just in the first two verses, so enormous in significance, that the roots being on top, the significance of the roots is hidden from you. And you are entangled in the web that the branches create. But how can we gain release from this samsara or this Ashwatha tree? By reading those leaves. Those leaves are always shimmering. They are attracting us, just as Swami's teachings are attracting us. And Swami has packaged this simple, basic teaching that we have to seek self-realization. That is the summary of all the spiritual teaching, is that, hey man, hey woman, try to understand that this is all a little bit of a trap. Seek realization. Seek your inner self. But to tell us this in different ways, there are 18 chapters of the Gita and so many different interpretations. And then, so Swami goes on to say, these are Swami's own words from the Gita Vahini. This is what every person has to discover for themselves, which is, and Swami says this beautifully. See, this Gita Vahini was written in 1964. And I don't know who translated it for Swami, maybe Sri Kasturi, who was at that time publishing it in the Sanatan Sarthi in each version. But look at the language Swami has used. Swami says, self-realization is either the knowledge that I am the truth of me. How beautiful. I am the truth of me. This I, this me that relates to my family, to my work, to my house, to my relatives, to my country, to my citizenship, to my different aspects of my life. What is in fact the truth of this me? And Swami says, self-realization is simple. It is the knowledge that I am the truth of me. At the center of this me, which I define as so tall, so dark, so fair, so rich, so well endowed with, capabilities, talents, assets, estates. But at the center of that is a very beautiful truth, which we are all really driven by that endeavor. Our spiritual drive is to find that I am the truth of me. And I was really fascinated when I read these words. Imagine we live in the 21st century, in 2020. But look at the language that Swami has used. He says, I am the truth of me. This me, why did he say I am the truth of me? Because he does not want to complicate the truth. The truth is very simple. The truth is within. And that truth, I have known myself, he says. That's all it is. But the different ways that he has explained appeal to different natures, to different personalities. But eventually, all of us have got to reach this. I am the truth of me. And it really makes me smile. Share this with other devotees, share this with other friends of yours that Swami said this. I am the truth of me. And then I want to take you to the next aspect of what Swami has described. Swami says in the Gita Vahini, the world is the instrument for the attainment of renunciation. This tyagam or giving up. How? How is this world? Because you and I, we are constantly seeking enjoyment in this world. When you're hungry and you have a cold glass of water with ice in it, you feel so good. When you're thirsty, when you're hungry, a bite of food makes you so happy. When you're lonely and your husband or your wife calls you up and says, hey, how are you doing? You're in this place, is all good. You feel so good. So when you're hungry, when you're thirsty, when you're lonely, when you're down, when you have a particular need, we fulfill ourselves through our companions, through our friends, through our family, through objects. When you're very bored, you look at the news item. So this world, the way you and I relate to the world is by external uh, attachments with the world, external binding with the world. Clearly, the world is outside of us. It's not within us. But we go to the world, we pick up an element of the world. But see what Swami is saying here. And that is why the study of the scriptures, and especially the Gita, they say that the Gita really defines humanity. The Gita is the pulse. The Gita defines us. And this statement really hit me that the world, Swami said, this is Swami's own words in the Gita Vahini, the world is the instrument for the attainment of renunciation. And then he says, that is why it is so tempting and so treacherous. Oh my God. Let's explore this. Why does Swami say it is so tempting? Tempting, we understand. I'm tempted by so many things. Tempted by good food. I always like other cars than the car that I have. If I am in a particular profession or a particular job, I feel somebody else in another job or other profession is better. If I'm in one country, I think, oh, the other country is better. As an Indian, if I thought of America being a wonderful place to live in, when I come to America, I think, oh, Europe is great. So that is how Swami describes something which you and I have all experienced. The world, this instrument of renunciation, which we still have to figure out. He says it is very tempting. That we all understand. But he says another thing which is really a call to our awakening, which is, he says it is so treacherous. Now I want you all to take to your chat windows and tell me, why do you think Swami says that the world is treacherous? I was very, very, intrigued. I was very surprised. Swami says the world is tempting and it is treacherous. Let me see some of you. There are less of us today. Everybody is busy with Ganesh Puja, but let me see if some of you want to tell me your thoughts. Why do you think the world is tempting? Yes, but treacherous too. Any idea? Okay, no takers today looks like. Okay, Maya, somebody is responding. That's good. Since it binds you and will not let you go. That's an interesting one. I'll tell you a quick story. So we think that it is changing. Swami used to say that this world is like this handkerchief. He would take his handkerchief from the side of his interview room door or interview room chair. And I'm sorry, I'm using my used handkerchief to show you. And Swami used to say, this world is like this handkerchief. And he used to say, he used to hold it like this. And he used to say, and then he would drop it. And he would say, the world is like this. All of you have held on to this world with all your might. And you say that the world is clinging to you. What can I do? I cannot let, the world is not letting me go. But what you have to actually do is drop your hold of the world. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to disagree with you, Vinita, but I'm just made me remember what Swami had said. See, the Guru, the master is the awakener. He has not come here to agree with us. Initially, he takes us and he accommodates us, but finally, he wants to change us in his own image. Okay, so much for that. Now, let me show you a quick video about Swami. I'm very sure each and every one of you have seen this video, but this really bears your attention once again, bears repetition. Please enjoy this.
Anityam asukam lokam. Anityam asukam lokam. Na? Anitya means not permanent. Asukam means comfort. Physical comfort. Physical comfort என்ன ஒரு ஏர் கண்டிஷன் உட்காருங்க ஏர் கண்டிஷன் பாடியில் கூலாக இருக்கு மனசாந்தி because ಎಲ್ಲ ಕೂತು ಕಾಡು போயிட்டு இந்த மழை நீரெல்லாம் நல்லா பீஸ்ஃபுல்லா மனசாந்தி இருக்கிற எங்கே போனா சாந்தி மனசாந்தி வேணும் ஏர் கண்டிஷனர்లో ரெண்டு பெட்ஸ் ரெண்டு பில்லோஸ் போட்டுக்கணும் ரொம்ப ரசிச்சு என்ன தெரியாது because மணியே மனுஷியா வாடி ஒரு கார் தெரியுமா வண்டி மைண்ட் ஹார்ஸ் ஃப்ரெண்ட் கார் பேக் அது ஹார்ஸ் ஃபுட்டுக்கு நல்லா கொடுக்கணும் ஹார்ஸ்னா மைண்ட் நல்லா தாட்ஸ் நல்ல ஐடியாஸ் பிகாஸ் மைண்ட் நல்லா கொடுக்கணும் சும்மா வண்டி மாத்திரம் டிமென்ஷன் படிக்கணும் என்ன பிரயோஜனம் கண்டிப்பாக இருக்கலாம் எப்போ பார்க்கணும் வண்டி பேச்சு போட்டு பிரயோஜனம் இல்லை ஹார்ஸ் நல்ல கொடுக்கணும் அது இது வழி நல்லா அதே மைண்ட் சாந்தி கிடைக்கிறது.
So that was a very beautiful close-up of Bhagwan. I'm sure it must have stilled all our minds. Somebody did us a great favor by taking that video of Bhagwan. What an angle! You could see the Lord in all his beauty, right? And brothers, sisters, when we think about this Purushottam Yoga, when we think about this form of Sri Krishna, this video gave me many messages. But the one important message for me as a Sai student and a Sai devotee is that glorious form of Bhagwan. If that divine being takes birth in this human ground, in this human world, look at the beauty of the Lord. The second thing, and I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, please take to your chat windows. But Swami was the other thing. He's so involved in teaching his message to those who want to listen to it. Swami is so active. He's so involved. He's full of love for the people to whom he is giving a teaching. Now I want to ask you, what is the core with which this thing started? We were talking about the tempting nature of the world and the treacherous nature of the world. What are the three things that Swami said in the beginning of the video that related to that tempting and treacherous nature of the world? Please go ahead and let me see that you are able to, get that piece of it. Any takers? Okay, horse and the cart was towards the end. That's how we remember what was at the end. But what did the video start with? I'm the quiz master, right? I have to trick you all. But the main reason for my showing you that video was to tell you about the Anityam Asukham Lokam. Fantastic. That is so wonderful of Swami. So, and Swami goes on to explain Anityam. What is Anityam? Anybody on the video, on the chat? Anityam, fleeting, not permanent. Asukham. What is asukham? We always say sukhi hai, asukh. We never use the word asukham, but Swami is using the word no comfort. Okay? And what is the last word? Lokam. So what is Swami doing? That very world with which we relate, constantly seeking relaxation, comfort, permanence. We want permanence. If you go to a place where there are 90-year-olds, 95-year-olds, nobody is thinking that they are at the end of their lifespan. Nobody. And this is not to blame anybody. It is within our human nature that we all feel that we are here forever. Anityam never occurs to our mind. Hey, I'm not going to be there tomorrow. Impossible. That thought, forget about pushing that thought out of our mind. That thought never even comes to us or sticks on us. Even if you go to a funeral or a cremation ground, you never think that this could happen to me. So Swami, and I want to ask you all on the chat, did you notice that Swami asked somebody to repeat Anityam Asukham Lokam? Can you tell me who does Swami ask to repeat that Anityam Asukham Lokam phrase? Anybody? Did you notice that not only does Swami give the teaching, students, okay, let me show you that again. That was a little boy whom Swami asked to, let me just bring that up again. 1 second. Okay, I'm not able to, let me share that. That really fascinated me and struck me as how the divine teacher operates. Just 1 second.
Anitya means not permanent.
So I'm sorry I showed you that again, but I wanted to show you that, and this is how we have to see, because we came to Swami and we have loved him, and of course he has loved us. But you're seeing something very, very special, brothers and sisters. We may study 700 verses of the Gita, but if we miss this, we have missed a lot. So not only is the divine master telling the group and that little boy, Anityam Asukham Lokam, he's making that little tiny tot. He must be all of 7 or 8 years. And he makes him repeat this as a mantra. That little boy who is just starting on his journey in life, Swami is introducing this. Right now, it's just a concept. I was very, 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 very inspired and thrilled to see how does the Lord teach. This is not an ordinary guru. He's not just a PhD. He is the divine Lord who has come down. He's the maker of all creation. He is the maker of us. And this is how he chose to impart this very serious, very abstract, very summary meaning. Anityam Asukham Lokam is really all of Lord Buddha's realization is packaged into these 3 words, Anityam Asukham Lokam. And he's making this little boy all of 7 or 8 or 9 years, repeat that. Why? It is said that the Tibetan monks, when they are between 6 and 7 years, they are taught to meditate. And these monks who learn to meditate for half an hour, 1 hour at that age, turn out to be completely different human beings. They have an ascetic nature as they go through life. Whatever they do in their life, they have a stillness, they have a mindfulness that is very different from others. So Bhagwan is doing many things in that interview. He's definitely imparting the meaning. He's making that boy take in these teachings and repeat it. When you repeat something, then you participate in that teaching. You engage in that teaching. It's not just a passive listening. If that little boy had just passively listened, oh, Swami said something, he wouldn't have even remembered it. But now when he leaves the interview room in Kodaikanal, he not only remembers Om Bhur Bhuva Swa with Swami's teaching, but he also remembers, oh, Anityam Asukham Lokam. And as he goes on through life and he seeks joy through different types of sensual fulfillment, right? This message will ring in his ears. So much for that. It took a little bit longer than I expected, but thank you for that. I hope that, I don't want to cover with a lot of things. I want to cover a few things, but we need to cherish them. And then, so let us go back and see one more verse of the. So so I put together a little framework for us to see. So as you look at this chapter, see, we just finished Bhakti Yoga. Okay, you're able to see my screen? I'm showing you something like a summary that I created to give you a perspective. You're able to see my Word document with this triangle?
Yes, Ravi Sairam.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. Because I'm sharing so many different things, I just don't want to confuse you. So we studied Bhakti Yoga just 2 chapters back, right? And there, what does Sri Krishna do? He thrills Arjuna by giving him Vishwarup Darshan. And then when Arjuna is in that, he's in a very different state. He has seen that cosmic form, and then he becomes very devoted. Right? Like we used to become as Sai students. Whenever we saw Swami materialize that lingam from his mouth, then it would jolt us. Say, oh my God, who can make the lingam like this? There would be like all of 30,000 people sitting there and 20 video cameras aimed at Swami. And in the middle of that bhajan, and then suddenly Swami would start like a little, he would start drinking a lot of water. And then suddenly he would, like a little bit of a, sensation, he would give the impression that he's going to throw up. And then we knew that something is going to happen. But each year that I saw it for 3 or 4 years at a stretch, And then Swami would start taking his kerchief and wiping because he was so clean in public, he would not like to have any water spilled around his mouth. And then suddenly he would tell them to change the bhajan, and the boys would take the cue and then start Shivaya Namah Shiva Shivaya Namah Shiva Shivaya Namah Om Namah Shivaya. That would signal to everybody that now a very different thing is going to happen. And the whole group of 30,000 people would start clapping and Shivaya Namah Shiva. And then Swami would bring out from a small lips such a massive golden lingam. And one year, after that big lingam came out, again he brought out a smaller golden lingam. And you won't believe it. That smaller lingam, when he brought it out, the force was so much, it got thrown several feet beyond the stage down where we were sitting. And one of the boys caught it and took it up to Swami. And then our simple Sai, such a simple Swami, he took it in a plate and he walked around showing it to everybody. He had manifested from his own divine being. And he showed us in those occasions, those moments, that he was not that 5'3" form which we were used to giving our letters and asking small permission for our parents to come and little things. He was Shiva. And brothers, sisters, that is exactly what happened to Sri Arjuna when he had that Vishwarup darshan. He was startled that the person whom I am thinking is my charioteer is having all these universes within him. And Bhishma and Duryodhana and Drona and all are already dead there. And beyond them, I can see the stars in the universe. This is the same feeling that we got when Swami materialized that lingam. Then we thought, oh my God, do we even know this person? So that constitutes Bhakti Yoga. Then we spoke about this knower and the known in the last class, right? Kshetra Kshetrajna. And I want to tell you a little bit about this. So, Swami has often spoken about 3 levels: concentration, contemplation, meditation. Concentration, contemplation, meditation. And just take to your chat windows and tell me, what is it that you understand from concentration, contemplation, and meditation? One or two of you, do you have a point of view on that? Okay, I'll tell you one thing that I remember Swami told us. 3 phases. Yes, there are 3 growth phases, right? I'll tell you one thing funny that Swami said, which made me remember it. Swami said, concentration is outside the room. Then there is a threshold. And then there is the room. And Swami said, concentration is outside the room. When you want to enter the inner chamber, your inner being, when you want to contact your inner self, then you have to come from the outer room, which is the senses, over the threshold. That is the roadblock that we have to overcome, the threshold, which is raised ground. And then you can come into the inner room, which is meditation. So concentration at the level of the senses. Contemplation is the uphill. You have to take a step to go over it. And then you will enter the room of meditation. And very beautiful thing, I want to ask you, when you see a beautiful painting, fantastic painting of some great scenery, what do you tell yourselves? Anybody can tell me on the screen, on the chat window? When you see a lovely painting, you say, what a beautiful scenery. What a creation. Yes. What happens? We often lose track of time. And what do we say? Look more carefully, deeper. Okay. But very often we say, oh, I lost track of time. And then we add one very meaningful sentence which we don't pay attention to. We say, we lost ourselves in that. Do you agree? Often we say, oh, I lost myself in that. And losing ourselves in the external world is concentration. So when we concentrate a lot on making a PowerPoint presentation, when we concentrate a lot on what a patient is telling us as a physician, when we concentrate a lot on playing tabla in the bhajan, when we concentrate a lot on matching our key while singing with the keyboard, that is concentration. And we lose ourselves in that. And we think that losing ourselves in that is a great thing. But Swami gives us a warning. When you lose yourself in concentration, that is in the external world, that's in the lower world, that is in the world of senses. So when I'll take you back now to the triangle and you'll be able to appreciate what I'm trying to convey. So we should not lose ourselves here. I'm writing it there. Don't lose ourselves in concentration. You have to find ourselves. We have to find ourselves in meditation. Can you all see my screen? And it cannot be selves, it has to be self. We have to find ourselves. So brothers, sisters, I'm sorry if I'm not able to communicate. But when we commonly say we lost ourselves in something, that is because we are concentrated on that. I didn't know how time passed. That is in the sensual world. We are so used to doing this. But we have to find ourselves. So there is a difference between objective knowledge. Objective knowledge is around us, it is outside of us. And the Gita is telling us through Kshetrajna Yoga to find the knower of knowledge. We get so involved in seeking knowledge, finding knowledge, doing research, asking questions, absorbing facts, memorizing the facts. That is all what is called objective knowledge. That is where we lose ourselves and we concentrate ourselves to do that. Stay with me on this. This is a very wonderful thing Shri Krishna has taught us in Kshetrajna Yoga. Don't worry all the time about the known, the facts, the news, the books, the textbooks. Start concerning yourself a little bit about who is the knower, who is the seer, not the seen. And that is the summary of that Kshetrajna Yoga. And then he took us into Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga. I'm trying to bring it all together for you so that you don't get confused by what we have read and seen. So after Kshetrajna Yoga, Shri Krishna talked to us about Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga. And he explained to us how there are 3 ways in which you can cover or let the light illuminate outside. If you have the sattvic nature, that light then will shine through the pure glass with his sattva. So I wanted to end with this summary that let's not get confused. With Bhakti Yoga, Krishna is awakening our devotion. Then he is giving us the knowledge that you people, Arjuna, you wanted to learn archery, you learned Chakravyuha, how to fight people, you learned the art of weaponry. That is the known. But now you start being concerned about the knower. And if he had not created this bhakti in Arjuna, and by giving him Vishwarup Darshan and explaining to him so much, then Arjuna would not have taken in this teaching that the knower is more important than the known. He would have said, no, Krishna, I don't get it. But because he was so devoted, he knew Krishna is the supreme being, then he listened to him and he took in this idea that I have to focus on the knower, not on the known. And then the way to do it is the 3 gunas. Work with the 3 gunas and the qualities. And finally, to remember that this world, which we are so enamored of, but the Buddha kept on saying, Sarvam Dukkham, Sarvam Shanikam. And Swami taught that little boy, Anityam Asukham Lokam. So this should be our mantra. And as we make this our mantra, then we will realize the basis, which is that Ashwatha tree. We never look up at the roots because the roots are supposed to be below. But through the leaves, when you look at the leaves that are twinkling in that tree, those are the Vedas. When we go for that godly knowledge, that otherworldly knowledge, then when we look up, we will see that this tree is hanging from God. The karma bhumi, our gunas, this web of the samsara or the ocean of life is originating in the roots of God. And that atmic, we will then start seeking self-realization, which is, I want to end with this very beautiful sentence. I really want you to tell your children, your friends, your other devotees. Swami said this, I am the truth of me. There is no other truth about me. I'm not defined by my family, by my job, by my age, by my citizenship. I am the truth of me. So Shri Krishna has taken us through a fantastic journey. Brothers, sisters, I try to bring it together here. Through bhakti, he made us devoted enough to listen to him. By listening to him, he told us that don't focus on the known, focus on the knower. Be aware that these three gunas, as they are manifesting through you, are continuously confusing you. And then go for that inner knowledge. Find yourself. With that, I'll stop and want to thank you for attending. Some of you who could make it today. To me, the Gita is giving lot of joy, lot of inner joy, not just conceptual learning. I hope you are also all being inspired to take this in and make it a practical way of life. Om Shri Sai.
Sairam, Ravi, thank you so much. And I don't know how much work has gone into getting these slides together and summarizing it for us. Very beautiful. And again, I really thank you. I apologize for joining a little bit late, totally lost track of time there. And just, I'm the truth of me, and just, talking about concentration, contemplation, and then meditation. So many beautiful examples, especially the video that you showed of Swami. That was just very beautiful. Anityam, Asukham, Lokam. Thank you again, Ravi. And next week, I'm sure because of Vinayak Chaturthi, now many of the people could not join. Next week, we'll have regular session. Thank you, Sairam. Happy Vinayak
Sairam.
Chaturthi, and talk to you all later.
Om Shri Sai.
Sairam.
Jai Sai.